You've been led astray, perhaps from the moment you first understood the world around you. A grand misdirection has taught you that discipline is merely a contest of willpower, a brute force push against the tides of laziness. You were told to wake earlier, to draft more elaborate plans, as if the superficial tidying of your life's desk could address the deep-seated disarray in its very foundation. But the unvarnished truth is far more severe. Discipline is not found in sporadic bursts of effort or in the manufactured enthusiasm of a new day. Discipline is conflict, an unceasing internal siege. In this battle, you either command your inner world with the unwavering authority of a sovereign ruler marshaling their forces, or you will be overrun and broken by your own inherent frailties. Most drift through life like derelict vessels, their hulls breached by every passing impulse, their navigation crippled by an internal mutiny of disorder. They become easy conquests for the first flicker of temptation. What they fail to grasp is that without a strategically implemented system of self-mastery, there can be no genuine liberty, no enduring strength, no ultimate triumph. Those who neglect to impose a rigorous order upon their own being are condemned to a perpetual enslavement by the forces of chaos. Certain astute observers of the human condition, those who looked upon humanity with an unflinching, surgical gaze, understood this principle with chilling clarity. While the chorus sings praises to positivity and blind self-belief, these realists knew that the world does not often favor the merely well-intentioned. It yields to the disciplined. It rewards those who, even when besieged by pressure and surrounded by turmoil, can maintain unwavering command over their own faculties. For such minds, discipline was never a quaint moral aspiration or a distant, beautiful ideal. It was and remains a fundamental imperative of survival. Without this internal structuring, both the powerful and the powerless, the king and the commoner, are inexorably drawn towards the same abyss, ruin. And here lies the most unforgiving aspect of this reality. The instant you abdicate the responsibility of governing yourself, you surrender the very helm of your destiny to another, to an external influence, to any passing whim that blows with greater force than your own enfeebled will. Life, much like a seat of power, is never left unoccupied. Either you claim your place with absolute, unshakable dominion, or you will inevitably be ruled. If your concept of discipline is confined to early rising only on those fleeting days when motivation strikes, then abandon that notion. If you believe that simple desire is sufficient to maintain resolve in the face of adversity, discard that illusion. This is not a message for those seeking gentle reassurances or comfortable platitudes. This is for those who are prepared to shoulder the formidable, often brutal responsibility of forging themselves, much like a master smith hammers and shapes raw ore into a blade of tempered steel. Authentic discipline necessitates unblinking vigilance, meticulous strategic forethought, and an unyielding capacity for self-regulation. It requires you to construct an inner citadel, a fortress within your own mind, where the caprice of fortune holds no sway, where the insidious creep of chaos finds no unguarded entry. Thinkers who dissected the mechanics of power and human nature did not write to offer solace to the naive. They wrote to cultivate strategists, to arm the minds of those audacious enough to confront the stark, unembellished realities of influence and control. When we examine discipline through such a lens, we must divest ourselves of any juvenile fantasy of willpower fueled by fluctuating inspiration. For these pragmatists, discipline is architecture. It is calculated design. It is the bedrock of endurance. Bereft of it, even the most promising individual becomes defenseless, an easy mark for the very forces they fail to comprehend or command. Consider the clear assertion: the sound organization of any collective, be it an army or a state, originates from a foundational order. Discipline is the vital sinew that empowers a city, an army, or an individual to withstand the relentless onslaught of adversities. It is made unequivocally plain: without this disciplined core, no entity, be it civic, military, or personal, can long endure. The external stability we observe, the resilience of a governing body, the strength of an institution, is but a mirror reflecting an internal coherence. There can be no lasting victory for those who are captives of their own erratic impulses. There is no genuine authority for those who cannot first govern their own internal realm. What these discerning minds perceived with a clarity that can still unsettle us today is that discipline is not a mere accessory for tranquil times. It is a permanent, indispensable suit of armor. Discipline, in this view, is the critical element that anchors a leader, or indeed any individual, against the siren calls of action born from rage, from fear, or from vanity. It is the profound ability to adhere to a chosen strategy, even when the entire environment screams for impulsive, reactive decisions. An undisciplined leader, it was understood, is a far greater menace to their own interests than any external foe, because their downfall will not be solely orchestrated by adversaries. It will spring forth from the very internal fissures they neglected to seal. To act without careful calculation, to advance without thorough preparation, to react without deliberate reflection, these are the well-trodden pathways to collapse. Discipline, therefore, is not a practice to be engaged in when convenient. It must be cultivated with the same rigorous, unceasing dedication as the maintenance of a vital defensive wall, one that guards against the inevitable encroachment of decay and disorder. Human beings were seen as inherently susceptible to the corrupting influences of unchecked desire, of pride, and of fear. Only through a relentless, unwavering vigilance over oneself could one hope to resist this potent internal force of self-destruction. And do not imagine this applied solely to those in positions of overt authority. Every single individual who aspires to be the master of their own fate must apply this same unwavering mental regimen. If you do not actively govern your mind, it will be governed by the fluctuating tides of circumstance, by the whims of emotion, and by the relentless pressure of external forces. And those who are governed by others, in this stark understanding, are already effectively neutralized, their agency surrendered. They simply await the final, formal collapse. This line of thought penetrates even deeper, comparing the human spirit to a field of battle, where discipline stands as the solitary, defining line between triumph and utter annihilation. It is this very metaphor of the internal war, and the crucial understanding of how it must be waged with the meticulous discipline of a seasoned commander, that demands our full attention. Picture an army advancing into conflict, devoid of rigorous training, without a coherent strategy, utterly lacking in obedience to a clear chain of command. What unfolds before your mind's eye? It is an openly declared catastrophe, an unavoidable carnage. No amount of spontaneous courage or fleeting bravery can salvage soldiers who have not been conditioned to resist the onset of panic, who cannot endure prolonged fatigue, who have not mastered their own primal instincts when confronted with the stark face of terror. This, for the keen strategists of human nature, was precisely the condition that condemned ill-prepared forces and fragile regimes. The fundamental absence of authentic, ingrained discipline. A wise commander's directives, they observed, fall on deaf ears when addressed to undisciplined ranks. This pronouncement is more than a mere military aphorism. It is a profound psychological tenet. If your mind operates like an unruly, untrained militia, then no conscious edict you issue to yourself will carry any meaningful effect. You can formulate resolutions, you can articulate ambitions, you can solemnly pledge to undertake transformative changes, but if your thoughts, your emotions, and your impulses are not rigorously trained to obey your higher intentions, they will desert you at the first sign of genuine challenge. You will invariably find yourself undermining your own best decisions, betraying your most cherished ambitions, a victim of your own internal insubordination. Military discipline, for these thinkers, was the very quintessence of victory. It was the mechanism that allowed the organized few to overcome the disorganized many, the strategically adept weaker force to surpass the brute strength of a larger, less coherent foe. A small but impeccably disciplined fighting unit was deemed infinitely superior to a vast, undisciplined horde. The very same principle applies with unwavering accuracy to your internal world. A few well-trained, strategically deployed thoughts possess far greater power than 1,000 conflicting, scattered desires. Real, actionable power does not reside in the sheer quantity of ideas or impulses you harbor, but in the degree of mastery you exert over them. Now engage in a moment of brutal, unsparing self-honesty. How many times have your endeavors failed? Not from a deficiency of inherent talent, but from a catastrophic lapse of internal control. How many commitments made to yourself have you violated, not due to an absence of capability, but because you permitted exhaustion, apprehension, or uncertainty to seize command of your actions? Just as an incompetent general can lose a battle before a single shot is fired, you forfeit the larger war of your life the moment you relinquish the reins of mental discipline. This kind of discipline means confronting each day with the same unwavering resolve, irrespective of your fluctuating emotional state. It means adhering to your chosen strategies, not your transient feelings. It means taking action even when your body protests, even when your spirit falters, because victory, in any meaningful sense, belongs exclusively to those who refuse to retreat when faced with the inherent harshness of the path they have chosen. The great strategists understood that battles are not won solely through the application of brute force, but through relentless order, through constant, unblinking vigilance, and through a level of preparation that actively anticipates the unforeseen. This same logic governs the mind. The contemporary world often glorifies fleeting sentiment and paradoxically disdains the rigorous application of discipline. This is precisely why so many individuals live in a state of perpetual defeat, forever casting blame on external circumstances rather than confronting their own internal lack of structure. But the truth is now laid bare. If you aspire to master your life, you must first become the undisputed general of your own inner army. Train your mind as a wise commander would train their troops, without leniency, without excuses, without concessions. Because in the unforgiving battlefield of existence, indiscipline is not merely a flaw, it is a slow, inexorable death sentence. If discipline is the bedrock of that inner strength, that virtue or inherent capability that empowers one to shape their own destiny, then we must explore how keen thinkers contrasted this force with the unpredictable nature of fortune, skill against luck, imposed order against encroaching chaos. It is about how to effectively conquer the whims of chance through the relentless, systematic construction of your own internal fortitude. In the unadorned, often stark worldview of such realists, fate is not some equitable force that meticulously rewards virtue and punishes vice. Instead, fortune is depicted as a blind, impetuous power, akin to a raging river that, when swollen, inundates the plains, uproots trees, demolishes structures, and reshapes the very landscape by its violent passage. Everyone flees before its fury, all yield to its onslaught, unable to offer effective resistance. Yet, the fact that such forces are tempestuous does not preclude prudent individuals, during times of calm, from taking vital precautions, from erecting dikes and barriers. This metaphor should resonate deep within you like a battle alarm. The world is inherently unpredictable, often violent, and largely indifferent to your aspirations and your unfulfilled promises. Those who passively await fortune's smile without diligent preparation are, in effect, condemning themselves to ruin. Only those who invest the effort in constructing internal defenses, a disciplined mind, and unbreakable will, can hope to withstand the inevitable storms when they arrive. This is where the concept of inner power, of virtue, comes into play. This is not virtue in a purely moralistic sense. It is intrinsic strength, the capacity to adapt, to act with decisive force, keen intelligence, and unwavering resilience when confronted by adversity. It is the ability to strategically shape circumstances rather than being passively molded by them. This inner power is, in essence, discipline in dynamic action. It is the tangible expression of your ability to remain steadfast when everything around you seems to be crumbling, to perceive and create opportunities where others see only despair, to resist the juvenile impulse to blame misfortune for your own shortcomings and lack of foresight. Great individuals, according to this philosophy, do not merely depend on luck. They actively challenge it. They endeavor to bend it to their will. They utilize it as a tool when advantageous, but never as an excuse for inaction or failure. They diligently construct their defenses before the deluge. They cultivate discipline before crisis demands a strength they have not yet developed. They train their minds for the rigors of conflict, while others remain ensconced in the comforting illusion that all will somehow resolve itself in the end. Now, examine your own life with that same brutal honesty. How many times have you found yourself waiting for circumstances to spontaneously improve? How often have you hidden behind the pretext that the moment was not opportune, that conditions were not ideal? Fortune, as these thinkers understood, is indeed unpredictable, but it is not invincible. Those who rely solely upon its capricious favor are inevitably doomed. Those who diligently cultivate their own internal strength, their own virtue, are the ones who prevail. But how does one translate this potent philosophy into tangible practice? How do you cease being a mere plaything of chance and become the deliberate architect of your own destiny? The grand modern illusion surrounding discipline is why most attempts to attain it end in miserable failure. Today, the very word discipline has been co-opted, transformed into a neatly packaged commodity, adorned with self-help slogans, and marketed as a series of easy tricks. To discipline oneself, they claim, is merely to install automatic habits, to utilize an array of apps, planners, and color-coded spreadsheets, as if humanity's most ancient and profound battle, the struggle for self-mastery, could be decisively won with digital reminders and inspirational quotes. This contemporary portrayal is a grotesque distortion. A true student of human nature, if alive today, would likely scoff at such naivety. They knew that genuine discipline is never comfortable. It is never easy. It is not something you can simply download and install into your life like a piece of software. Discipline is pain. It is a declared open war against every weak, lazy, and cowardly impulse that resides within you. You fail because you have been insidiously conditioned to seek shortcuts, trained to believe that if you can just find the right habit, the correct system, your life will magically align itself. But real, enduring discipline does not spring from comfort. It is born from relentless confrontation. It is not about waking up, feeling inspired to act. It is about acting, even when your body screams for respite, even when your mind desperately tries to negotiate a surrender. Those who await the perfect moment, the ideal conditions, are, by definition, already defeated. Preparation must be undertaken during the quiet lulls, not when the storm has already broken. Discipline must be forged on the monotonous, unglamorous days, in the silent, unseen moments, in the countless invisible battles waged far from the world's applause. It is in what no one else witnesses that true power is meticulously crafted. Yet, the modern mindset often treats failure as something unremarkable, a mere stepping stone, an expected part of the process. You are encouraged to forgive yourself too readily, to reward yourself for every minute victory, as if life were primarily a competition in self-esteem, rather than a stark matter of actual survival and meaningful achievement. And while you anesthetize yourself with these comforting excuses, your true potential withers, untapped and decaying within you. Modern discipline is predominantly emotional. It hinges on mood, on motivation, on the prevailing environment. The discipline described by clear-eyed strategists of the past is structural. It deliberately ignores mood. It utterly despises reliance on fleeting motivation. It imposes itself as a mental fortress, constructed of unyielding stone, not pliable emotion. Those who wait to feel ready, who delay action pending some perfect celestial alignment, live like livestock being passively led to the abattoir, awaiting an external force to decide their fate. If you genuinely desire to build the kind of discipline that forges empires, both internal and external, you will have to undertake what most will never dare. Abandon the persistent need for comfort, accept that hardship is an integral part of the forging process. Embrace difficulty as the resistance that strengthens, and transform your mind into a rigorous training ground where weaknesses are not coddled or excused, but systematically identified and eliminated. It is time to cast aside empty theorizing. If you intend to prevail, you must transform discipline into a brutal, daily, inflexible practice. It is insufficient to merely comprehend the importance of discipline as an abstract concept. You must construct an internal structure so robust, so unyielding, that neither your inherent laziness nor your deepest fears, nor your most insidious doubts find any quarter to survive. The wise ruler, as sagacious minds have taught, anticipates potential disasters and erects defenses long before they are pressingly needed. You must adopt this same proactive stance with your own mind. Establish your internal war strategies before the battle begins. If you awaken each day, passively waiting to gauge your mood before deciding on action, you have already conceded defeat. Your victory or your failure will be determined in the quiet, early hours of the morning, long before the wider world even becomes aware that you are engaged in a contest. Here is a method, a way to approach this. First, constant unblinking vigilance through daily self-observation. Every single day, without exception, you must scrutinize your own thoughts, your behaviors, your reactions, as a meticulous general inspects his troops and fortifications before committing to battle. Ask yourself, where am I inadvertently leaving gaps in my defenses? At what specific moments are my emotions usurping rational command? If you permit even a small, seemingly innocuous habit of idleness, a single innocent-sounding excuse or a trivial distraction to take root and settle in, understand this clearly. These are the subtle cracks through which failure will inevitably infiltrate your fortress. Imagine your mind as a castle. Every act of unaddressed laziness is a stone dislodged from its walls. Every instance of procrastination is a siege engine aimed directly at your own fortifications. Constant vigilance means emulating the commander who, even in protracted periods of peace, inspects his defenses daily, corrects flaws immediately, and punishes, without mercy or hesitation, any emergent sign of decay or complacency. Second, a clear, unambiguous strategy embodied in routines that eliminate the treacherous need for moment-to-moment decision-making. You must internalize a brutal truth. Your brain, if afforded the option, will almost invariably choose the path of least resistance. Every decision, no matter how small, expends precious mental energy. Every flicker of doubt consumes vital willpower. In times of uncertainty, those who hesitate are often lost. Therefore, the construction of discipline commences by systematically eliminating as many daily decisions as possible. Rigid, predetermined routines are not a form of imprisonment. They are, in fact, a gateway to genuine operational freedom. You must establish fixed, non-negotiable times to wake, to work, to study, to train, and then adhere to these established protocols as unerringly as a soldier follows orders on the battlefield. For example, if you defer the decision of whether or not to train until after an exhausting day, the outcome is predictable. You will not train. Your brain, seeking comfort, will sabotage your intentions. However, if you transform that training into an inviolable commitment, woven into the very fabric of your day, as an integral part of your identity, there is no longer any room for internal negotiation or debate. Training simply happens, period. Third, relentless reinforcement through the imposition of real, tangible consequences for failures. In the unyielding arena of the real world, actions invariably have consequences. In warfare, a mistake is not a minor detail. It is often the stark difference between survival and death. You must engineer a system where your own actions carry similar weight. If you deviate from your established routines, if you fail to meet your self-imposed standards, there must be an immediate, tangible, and preferably painful price to pay. This is how your mind learns, unequivocally, that failure is not an acceptable option. Consider establishing a public commitment. If you fail to adhere to your regimen, you must, for instance, donate a sum of money to a cause you actively despise, or you must openly admit your failure to peers whose respect you value. You must bear the weight of that lapse, understanding that discipline is not solely about achieving rewards, but more fundamentally about avoiding ruin. Think of a soldier in rigorous training. They do not choose whether to run 5 kilometers in a downpour based on their motivation levels. They run because there is an established chain of command, because they understand implicitly that failure to comply means punishment, shame, and potential expulsion. Your mind must be conditioned to operate under a similar internal authority. It obeys because it is the right, strategic course, not because it feels comfortable or convenient. This is the stark truth that few are willing to fully accept. Building real, enduring discipline is akin to putting chains on yourself, deliberately, before life inevitably imposes its own, far more restrictive shackles upon you. It is about making hardness a daily ritual, waking each day and, without succumbing to self-pity, marching towards your objective with the cold, unwavering resolve of a relentless commander. If you have journeyed this far, you must comprehend one crucial thing. Knowledge uncoupled from decisive action is merely a form of cowardice. Many will absorb these words, perhaps even feel the sharp sting of truth within them, and yet they will predictably revert to their familiar lives characterized by excuses, by procrastination, and by insidious self-sabotage. They will choose to remain subjects of their own untamed impulses, slaves to their own cultivated weaknesses, pathetically begging for scraps of luck from the table of fate, while simultaneously cursing its perceived injustices. But a select few, a small minority, will make the pivotal choice, the choice that transmutes ordinary individuals into true commanders of their own destiny. It is the choice to cease being governed and to commence governing. It is the choice to construct genuine discipline, not as a mere decorative ornament for pleasant days, but as an unbreakable, all-weather mechanism that underpins and sustains their entire existence. We have learned from the masters of strategy that to govern a state without rigorous discipline is to issue an open invitation to disorder and eventual collapse. And now you, too, know that governing your own life without that same rigorous discipline leads to precisely the same outcome. Your mind is your sovereign territory. Your habits are your standing army. Your decisions are your strategies of war. In this internal domain, you will either be the prince, the ruling authority, or you will be the prisoner, a captive of your own deficiencies. There is no neutral ground. There never has been. Perhaps you delude yourself into thinking that time is still on your side, that you can commence this arduous task tomorrow, or perhaps next week, or when external circumstances magically become more favorable. But history and human nature warn us. The leader who postpones critical action, awaiting the perfect moment, will invariably be annihilated by the first unexpected tide of misfortune. The only moment you truly possess is the present moment, now. Now, while you still possess the strength, while you still retain the capacity to erect the formidable walls of your inner fortress. Discipline yourself not for the fleeting pursuit of pleasure, not for the fickle approval of others, not for mere superficial aesthetics. Discipline yourself because your very life, in its most meaningful sense, depends upon it. Your freedom depends upon it. Your potential for greatness demands it. This is the path, the only path, to true self-mastery, to a life lived with intention, power, and unwavering purpose. Thanks for watching. If this resonated, please like this video and subscribe to stay updated. I look forward to continuing this journey with you. Until next time, take care and be present.